The snow outside glittered under the streetlights, soft flakes settling on parked cars. From the driveway, I could hear the muffled laughter spilling from inside my parents' house. Christmas music, clinking glasses, bursts of cheer. Through the frosted window, I caught a glimpse. The long dining table, candles glowing, my family raising their glasses in a toast. I wasn't there, not because I didn't want to be, but because they didn't invite me. The message had been clear when my brother called last week, smugness dripping from his voice. Mom says Christmas isn't really a place for losers. You understand, right? Loser. That's what I was to them, even after I'd paid their bills, kept the lights on, and bailed them out when the credit cards maxed. I stood in the cold, the sting sharper than the winter wind. They thought they had humiliated me for the last time. Narrator, VO. They thought this would break me. But they had no idea what was coming. Fade to black. The war had just begun. Growing up, Christmas was supposed to be about warmth, about cinnamon cookies cooling on the counter, the smell of pine from the old tree, the steady hum of my father's favorite carols. At least, that's how it looked from the outside. Inside, it was something else entirely. I was the quiet one, the one who held things together, who didn't ask for much. My brother, shiny, loud, reckless, was the star. My parents adored him. He could crash the car, skip class, lie straight to their faces, and they would laugh it off. Boys will be boys, my mother always said, ruffling his hair. But if I came home with a B on a test, disappointment. If I stayed out late after work, accusations. If I needed help, silence. The pattern was clear. I gave, and he took. I cleaned up his messes, fixed his mistakes, paid off his debts when his gambling spiraled. And worst of all, I paid my parents' bills when the mortgage threatened to swallow them whole. They said thank you once, briefly, before the spotlight shifted back to him, as it always did. I tried to ignore it. I told myself that family was about sacrifice, that love meant giving without keeping score. But love without respect is just servitude, and I didn't see that truth until it was far too late. The first sting came 2 years ago. My brother had just returned from another failed business venture, debts piled high. I slipped him the money to cover it, quietly, because I didn't want my parents embarrassed in front of the community. That Christmas, they threw him a grand dinner anyway. Toasts, gifts, speeches about how resilient he was. Me? They forgot to get me a chair at the table. I ate standing in the corner, holding a paper plate. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. I told myself it was a mistake, that maybe it wasn't intentional, but when it happened again the next year, when they cut me out of the family photo, when my brother smirked and whispered, "Guess you don't really belong here," I understood. It wasn't a mistake. It was a message. Still, I stayed. I kept paying. I kept showing up, because part of me still hoped they would see me, finally, as more than their scapegoat. But this year was different. This year, after I cleared my parents' overdue utility bills, after I put money in their account to stop the foreclosure, I got the call. My brother's voice, smug as ever. "Mom says Christmas isn't a place for losers. You understand, right? Loser." That word echoed through me like a gunshot. It wasn't just about Christmas anymore. It wasn't about being excluded from one dinner or one photograph. It was about being erased, about being told, after everything I had done, that I was nothing. I stared at the frost on my window that night, the cold air seeping in through the cracks, and something inside me shifted. Narrator, VO. I had spent years giving, hoping, begging in silence. But silence has a breaking point, and mine had come. The days after Christmas stretched on like a bad dream. Everywhere I turned, there were reminders that I didn't belong. My parents didn't call. My brother posted photos on social media. Him at the head of the table, a gold watch flashing on his wrist, plates piled high with food I had bought with the money I sent. The captions were smug. Family first. Blessed I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. Family first. Except me. I kept replaying their words. No place for losers. The more I thought about it, the more the word burned. Loser? Me? I was the one who paid the bills, kept the house from foreclosure, kept their electricity from shutting off. Without me, there wouldn't have been a Christmas dinner to post about. And yet, in their story, I didn't exist. At work, I tried to keep my head down, but the stress showed. Sleepless nights left me with dark circles, my shoulders ached from the tension. I couldn't concentrate. I replayed every insult, every forgotten thank you, every time I'd been cut out of family photos. It ate at me, gnawed at my chest like something alive. The worst part wasn't the exclusion, it was the humiliation. Neighbors who saw the photos would nod and smile at my parents, praising the perfect family. People at church congratulated my brother for hosting such a beautiful Christmas. And me? They looked right through me, as if I was just a shadow. One night, unable to sleep, I pulled out a shoebox from the back of my closet. Inside were scraps of proof, receipts for bills I had paid, bank transfers made in their names, foreclosure letters I had quietly solved. Evidence of years of sacrifice, evidence that I wasn't a loser, I was their safety net. I ran my fingers across the papers, feeling the rough edges. Each slip of paper was a scar, proof of everything I had endured silently. For the first time, I realized these weren't just memories. They were weapons. Still, doubt gnawed at me. I was alone. Who would believe me if I spoke up? My parents had the community, the neighbors, the illusion of a perfect family on their side. My brother had charm, easy lies, and their approval. But then something happened. It was a Tuesday evening when Miss Rivera, our old neighbor, stopped me in the grocery store. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "I saw the photos," she said softly. "I know what you did for them. Don't let them treat you like this. You deserve better." Her words caught me off guard. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. She gave me a kind smile and patted my arm. Sometimes family isn't the ones at the table. Sometimes it's the ones who see you when others pretend not to. Her words pierced through the fog of humiliation, and for the first time, I felt a spark, a reminder that I wasn't invisible to everyone. Narrator, VO. That was the first time someone reminded me I wasn't alone. By January, the holiday lights were gone, but the cold silence from my family remained. No calls, no texts, not even a belated Merry Christmas. I should have been used to it by now, but the sting felt fresh, raw. Then, one Saturday morning, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address, but I knew the handwriting, my mother's. My pulse quickened as I tore it open. Inside was a neatly folded letter. "Since you've chosen to distance yourself from the family, we've decided it's best if you stop involving yourself in our affairs. Please don't send money anymore. It makes people talk. We'll manage just fine without you. Focus on your own life." I stared at the page, my hands trembling. Manage just fine? The mortgage, the credit cards, the car payments. Who did they think had been keeping those afloat? Without me, they'd drown in debt within weeks. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't them asking me to back off. This was them trying to erase me, to rewrite the narrative. A week later, my brother called, his voice dripping with superiority. "Mom says you need to stop clinging to us. We're not your responsibility. Honestly, it's embarrassing. You should focus on fixing your own pathetic life." I clenched the phone so tightly I thought it might crack. Pathetic. Loser. Clinging. Their words were designed to crush me, to make me small enough to disappear. But I wasn't small. Not anymore. Because in my closet, stacked neatly in that shoebox, was a different story. The real story. Bank records, receipts, foreclosure documents stamped paid because of me. Proof that I had saved them again and again while they called me a burden. I could feel the shift in my chest, a steadiness replacing the old ache. For the first time, I saw it clearly. They needed me far more than I needed them. And yet, they thought they still held the power. The following Sunday, I heard from a cousin at church that my parents had been bragging about helping me get by. They painted me as a dependent, a failure they carried out of pity. Laughter had filled the room as my brother chimed in, calling me the family charity case. It should have crushed me. But instead, I felt something sharper, colder, stronger. Rage was no longer wild. It was focused. I wasn't the charity case. I was the one keeping their world from collapsing. That night, I sat at my desk and began organizing everything. Every transfer, every receipt, every loan I had paid off in their names. Line by line, I built the truth. I even pulled my credit reports, highlighting the debts tied to their accounts that I had cleared. The evidence piled up, undeniable. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming the truth they had buried. Narrator, VO. They thought they still had control. They didn't. The following weeks felt like living in a theater production where I was cast as the villain, and my own family was directing the play. Rumors spread like wildfire. Neighbors gave me odd looks. Whispers trailed behind me at the grocery store. A friend pulled me aside after church, her face tight with discomfort. I don't know what's going on, but people are saying you stole from your parents, that you begged them for money at Christmas, and they had to turn you away. My chest burned. Stole? Begged? The lies weren't just casual gossip. They were weapons, sharpened to cut me down. It was my parents, and my brother. I could hear his mocking tone echo in every twisted story. Yeah, poor thing showed up crying. Mom had to slam the door just to protect us. Each word was meant to isolate me further, to turn the world against me before I could speak. For a moment, I nearly broke. The weight of it all pressed down on me. The sleepless nights, the gnawing ache in my stomach, the way I jumped every time my phone buzzed. My body carried the stress like a second skin, tight, raw, suffocating. But then came the spark. One night, I was sorting through the mountain of receipts at my kitchen table when my phone buzzed again. A message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My Aunt Clara. I know what they're saying about you. I don't believe it. And if you ever need someone in your corner, I'm here. I stared at the screen, tears stinging my eyes. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel entirely alone. That was the moment something shifted. I stopped seeing myself as the victim of their game. Instead, I became the strategist. I bought a binder and filled it with evidence, tabbed, highlighted, impossible to argue against. Every receipt, every wire transfer, every gift that had actually been me saving them from ruin. The shoebox of secrets had transformed into a weapon. Meanwhile, the lies from my family only grew louder. They told relatives I was mentally unstable, that I was obsessed with tearing the family apart. My brother even bragged at work that he had cut me off, as though I'd been leeching from him instead of carrying his debts for years. But something fascinating began happening. The cracks showed. Neighbors noticed my parents suddenly struggling to keep up with their mortgage. My brother's flashy lifestyle, new watches, trips, parties, started looking suspicious when bills piled up. I watched, silent, while they squirmed. Every insult, every rumor, every betrayal, it all built toward one thing, a reckoning they couldn't stop. Because the evidence was ready, and I wasn't hiding anymore. Narrator, VO. The day of reckoning was coming, and no one could stop it. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and old paper, the kind of place where secrets either died quietly or were ripped into the open. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my binder heavy in my lap. My hands didn't tremble, not anymore. The weeks of preparation had burned away the fear, leaving only clarity. Across from me, my parents and my brother looked smug, like gamblers certain the dice would land in their favor. My brother leaned back, sunglasses perched cockily on his head. My mother whispered in his ear, smirking, while my father scanned the crowd like a king surveying his court. They thought they'd already won. When the judge called us forward, their attorney launched into a speech, dripping with false pity. Your Honor, my clients have been unfairly slandered by their ungrateful child. This is a case of bitterness and delusion, nothing more. The words buzzed in the air like hornets, but I didn't flinch. When it was my turn, I stood, binder in hand, and let the silence stretch. The entire room watched. Reporters scribbled, neighbors leaned forward. Then, I opened the binder. Your Honor, I said, my voice calm but sharp enough to cut glass. This isn't about bitterness, it's about truth. One by one, I laid the receipts on the table. Mortgage payments with my name on them, utility bills I had covered, wire transfers marked in black and white, even the Christmas credit card statement. Thousands spent on parties and gifts for my brother, while not a cent acknowledged me. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. My father's jaw clenched. My mother's hand shook as she reached for a tissue, mascara already beginning to smudge. My brother, for once, had nothing to say. His smirk collapsed into something uglier. Fear. And yet, I continued, holding up the final piece, after everything I paid, everything I carried, this is the text message I received last Christmas. I read it aloud, each word echoing through the silent courtroom. Don't bother coming. No place for losers at this table. The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear the air conditioning hum, the judge's brow furrowed, eyes narrowing at my family as if seeing them clearly for the first time. I looked directly at my parents. I don't want apologies, I said, voice steady. I want change. That line, those 5 words, hung in the air like a verdict before the verdict. And in that moment, the empire they had built, the lies, the favoritism, the control, crumbled. My father's shoulders slumped. My mother hid her face in her hands. My brother stared at the floor, sunglasses forgotten on the table. The smugness, the power, the control, it was all gone. For the first time, I wasn't the one trembling. They were. Narrator, VO. The truth had landed like a bomb, and the fallout was just beginning. The verdict was swift, but the silence afterward stretched for miles. The judge's words echoed like a hammer striking metal. The evidence is undeniable. The financial burden was carried by the plaintiff alone. This court rules in their favor. And just like that, the balance shifted. My parents didn't look at me as they left. My mother clutched her purse like it was the last thing she could control. My father's stride was slower than I'd ever seen, his head bowed. My brother trailed behind them, his arrogance drained, sunglasses hiding eyes that were red, not smug. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward with microphones, but I didn't stop. I didn't need their validation. The truth had spoken for me. In the weeks that followed, the fallout spread like cracks through glass. The neighbors, who once echoed my family's gossip, now avoided their eyes. Some even approached me quietly, whispering apologies. My parents stopped hosting dinners, stopped sending holiday cards, stopped pretending they were pillars of the community. Their empire of reputation had collapsed under its own lies. As for my brother, he vanished into the city. I heard whispers of debts, of bridges burned, of jobs lost. But I didn't chase the details. His path was no longer mine to carry. And me, I began again. I bought a small home, nothing extravagant, just enough. A porch with peeling paint I could fix myself. A garden where lilacs would bloom in spring. A kitchen painted a soft yellow. Rachel helped me, laughing as we dripped paint on the floor. For the first time, I built something not for survival, but for joy. On the mantel above the fireplace, I placed a small wooden box. Inside, I kept tokens, the final court ruling, a $2 bill from my grandmother, and a folded note from Aunt Clara, the first person who reminded me I wasn't alone. It wasn't about the objects. It was about the promise they carried. Proof that no one could take my worth away again. At night, I sat on the porch, the cicadas humming in the dark, the air finally light on my chest. I breathed deeper than I ever had in that suffocating house I once called home. But more than peace, I carried lessons. I learned that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who stand beside you when everyone else walks away. Rachel, Aunt Clara, even strangers in the courtroom who clapped quietly as I walked out. They were my chosen family, and I learned that silence, once my shield, had power only when paired with truth. Enduring quietly wasn't strength. Strength was standing tall, speaking clear, and refusing to let lies define me. The contrast struck me one evening as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in oranges and purples. I remembered Christmas night, the text calling me a loser. The door closed in my face. I remembered the sting, the humiliation, the way I swallowed my pain. Now I held that same phone in my hand, but the weight felt different. No shame, no fear, just clarity. This wasn't revenge, I whispered into the quiet. It wasn't about destroying them. It was about peace, about choosing myself finally, after years of being erased. The past no longer haunted me. It fueled me. And as I set the wooden box back on the mantel, I felt it deep in my chest. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. If you've made it this far, maybe you've felt it too. What it's like to be forgotten, dismissed, or treated as if you don't matter. Maybe it wasn't about Christmas or money or gifts. Maybe it was about something deeper: respect, love, the right to be seen. I want you to know this. Worth isn't something they hand you like a prize. It's something you claim for yourself, even if you have to stand alone to do it. So now I'll ask you, have you ever faced betrayal or favoritism that cut so deep you thought you might never recover? What moment reminded you that you were stronger than they believed? Share your story in the comments, because someone out there needs to hear it. Remember this: they can take their love, their approval, even their place at the table, but they can't take your worth.